So this is going to be another movie review. This one's called Tango and Cash, 1989. I'm giving this 5 out of 5 stars. I love this flick. This is going to be another Karate Man recommendation. Two of LA's top something cops are going to have to work together even if it kills them. Um, Police corruption, explosions, cool fight scenes, lots of recognizable actors, a pretty decent action movie, not bad. I like Sylvester Stallone's sister, Teri Hatcher. She was in a more recent James Bond movie, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Tango and Cash is a 1989 U.S. buddy cop action comedy film. Even Adrian could guess that this one is a Karate Man recommendation, starring Sylvester Stallone, Kurt Russell, Jack Palance, and Teri Hatcher, the aforementioned lovely looking sister of Sylvester Stallone. Kurt Russell is looking at her going, thanks for the massage. Can I date your sister now? The film follows the titular pair of rival police detectives who are forced to work together after a criminal mastermind frames them for murder, played by the great Jack Palance. Jack Palance is the reason to watch. No matter how many times Tango and Cash foil his plans, he's always got this wicked smile on his face. Like he's got something up his sleeve or something's going on in his head. He's going to win till the last second until Stallone shoots him in the head. The film was chiefly directed by Andrei Konchalzovsky with, pardon my Russian there, with Andrei Magnoli and Peter McDonald taking over in the later stages of filming, with Steve Bard overseeing post-production. The multiple directors were due to a long and troubled production process that included numerous script rewrites and clashes between Konchalovsky and producer John Peters over creative differences. Well, I guess that director hasn't been in any other movies that I've seen, unless Karate Man corrects me in the chat room. Oh, there's Karate Man. I knew he'd show up. He didn't care about the Albert Pyong review that even though it's got Dudikoff in it. But here he is for Tango and Cash. I knew you would love Tango and Cash. Absolute great cast too. Yeah, I already mentioned that. Kick-ass 80s buddy cop action movie, cult classic. Yeah, it's got some decent action in there. Let me guess, is this one of your favorite Stallone movie and your favorite Kurt Russell movies? I can't think of any Stallone movies that I like more besides Rambo. Rambo might be better than this. I don't know. I haven't seen Rambo since the 80s. I saw it on the big screen with my mother. My mother would take me to these Rambo movies. I think I saw all three, if I'm not mistaken, with my mother. And those were the only R-rated movies that she took me to because they didn't have any nudity in it. It was all about killing people. My favorite Kurt Russell movie is Escape from New York, I think. Stallone drives a badass car in this one. I don't know. It looked like something out of a Twisted Metal video game, I guess. Tango and Cash was released by Warner Brothers in the US on December 22nd, 1989, the same day as Always, making it one of the last US films of the 1980s. The film received mixed reviews from critics, but it was a box office success, earning over $120 million on a $54 million budget. Lame stream. All right, we got a distributed production company, the Goobers Peters Company, distributed by Warner Brothers. Release date December 22nd, 1989 in the United States. Running time 104 minutes. A little long. I thought I was going to do 4 reviews today because my healthcare appointment got canceled for this morning, but I ended up taking a 2-hour nap, and then Amazon sent me the wrong size pants. So I've got to return 2 of them because if I try to wear pants with the wrong waist size and put a belt around it, it's just going to sag, and you can see my coin slot. All right. Language English, budget $54 million. Box office $120.4 million. In Los Angeles, Lieutenants Raymond Tango of the West Side and Gabriel Cash of the East Side are considered the best detectives in the Los Angeles Police Department, where they are both assigned to the narcotics division and lauded for numerous successful and daring drug busts across greater Los Angeles. However, they are opposites in almost every way and are intense rivals, each considering himself to be better, despite having never met. Unbeknownst to them, however, their intercepted drug shipments belong to a criminal organization headed by Yves Perret, played by the great Jack Palance. Frustrated, Perret and his associates plan their revenge against the detectives, but refrain from killing them as to not turn them into martyrs. Instead, Perret devises an elaborate scheme to ruin their lives, frame them for murder. Tango and Cash is basically John Rambo teams up with Snake Plissken. Best way to describe it. Or Cobra teams up with Snake. What a coincidence. I don't know. It's a lamestream movie. What can I say? Tango. So I'm going to arrest you, but you're going to frame me for murder? Is that the gist of the story? Tango and Cash are separately informed of a drug deal where they meet each other for the first time. The pair discovered the wiretapped corpse of an undercover FBI agent. Suddenly, additional FBI agents led by Agent Weiler arrive to arrest them for murder. Weiler finds Cash's backup pistol near the body, and at trial, an audio tape ostensibly recording the pair shooting the agent after discovering a drug purchase is used against them, verified by audio expert Skinner. With the evidence stacked against them, Tango and Cash plead no contest to a lesser charge in exchange for reduced sentences in a minimum security prison. However, they are held in a maximum security prison alongside several criminals they had arrested previously. So, once in prison, Tango and Cash are roused from their beds and they are tortured by Perret's henchman, Requin. Brian James playing with his fake English accent is starting to bother me. I was actually rooting for him to get the hand grenade and the groin treatment, and a gang of inmates until Matt Sikowski, the assistant warden and Cash's former commanding officer, rescues them. Sikowski recommends they escape and provides them with a plan, but Tango opts out. When Cash tries to escape, he finds Sikowski murdered, and he is pursued by the guards before being rescued by Tango. Reaching the roof, Cash zip lines outside the prison walls, but Tango is attacked by an inmate before he can follow. And Tango defeats him by knocking him into a transformer. We're talking about Robert Zedar right here. To clear their names, they separate. Tango tells Cash that if he needs to contact him, he can go to the Cleopatra Club and ask for Catherine. How come I never met a club singer or a club dancer? Oh, actually, I did. I met a burlesque dancer. Her name was Christelle Morgan, and she never had any money. She always wanted to mooch off me and get free rent in Redwood City. I bought a one bedroom. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment in Redwood City, and I let her live in the bedroom. I slept in the living room, and that was before I got married. Second time. The detectives visit the witnesses who framed them in court. Tango intercepts Weiler, who admits that Requin was in charge of the setup. And Requin is killed shortly after by a car bomb. Cash discovers that Skinner made the incriminating tape himself. At the Cleopatra Club, Cash finds Catherine, Tango's sister, who goes by the name of Kiki. And when police arrive at the club, she helps Cash escape by dressing him as a woman. All right. So we got Kurt Russell, who goes around wearing Kevlar around his apartment. Now he's a transvestite. Later that night, Tango reunites with Cash, and the duo are met at Kiki's house by Tango's commanding officer. He gives them Ranquin's address, and he tells them that they have 24 hours to find out who he works for. Why the time limit? They're off the hook now. So why the 24 hours time limit? Something to do with FBI politics. Tango and Cash apprehend Requin and interrogate him, and they trick him into giving up Parrot's name using a dummy grenade. That was a hard. You really have to suspend disbelief if you believe that Brian James is going to blurt out Parrot's name because somebody's going to Stallone is going to stick a grenade down his pants, which ultimately happens to him anyway at the end of the movie. Cash's friend, weapons expert Owen, lends the pair an armed RV. I guess this is what Karate Man is talking about, which they use to storm Parrot's hideout and defeat his pursuing guards. Requin is killed when Cash uses a real grenade in his pants. However, Parrot has Kiki kidnapped, and he starts a timer to trigger his hideout's self-destruct. He appears in a hall of mirrors, Holding Kiki at gunpoint, both detectives pick out the correct parrot and shoot him in the head because there's one mirror that has the ring finger on the wrong hand. They rescue Kiki and barely escape as the hideout explodes. All right. So, this movie rips off a couple things like Robert Zedar smashing through the truck window is a ripoff on the bus scene where Jackie Chan is just sitting in the middle of the road, or he's just standing in the middle of the road, and two guys go through the front bus windows. So that's a ripoff on Police Story. There's also another ripoff with the mirror scene. It's Enter the no. It's one of those lead movies. I can't remember which one. All right. The film was known as The Setup, and it was based on a script by Randy Feldman, which was based on an idea by John Peters and Peter Gruber. Sylvester Stallone and Patrick Swayze were assigned to star. In March 1989, Andrei Konchalovsky signed to direct after Swayze dropped out, and Swayze went on to star in Roadhouse. He was replaced by Kurt Russell. The original director of photography, Donald Peterman, left the production after 4 months, including a month of pre-production. His replacement, Barry Sonnenfeld, was fired by Sylvester Stallone after 1 week's work on the film. Donald E. Thorin, who had shot Stallone's movie Lockup earlier that year, was Sonnenfeld's replacement. After nearly 3 months of filming, director Andrei Konchalovsky was fired by producer John Peters in dispute over the movie's ending. In his 1999 memoir, Elevating Deception, Konchalovsky said that the reason he was fired was because he and Stallone wanted to give the film a more serious tone, make it more realistic than the producers wanted, especially John Peters, who kept pushing for the film to be goofier and campier, and as such, his relationship with Peters became untenable. This might have actually been a better movie if the producers had actually allowed the director more freedom, but it's a lamestream movie, so you have Warner Brothers dictating, or I'm sorry, the John Peters and Peter Gruber dictating how to direct this film, essentially, and even the storyline. Another reason why Konchalovsky was fired was his refusal to agree what he referred to as a increasingly insane demands that Peters had. Well, this Peters guy is just bad producer. Konchalovsky said that he was initially hired to make a buddy cop movie with plenty of humor, but Peters basically wanted to turn it into a spoof without any semblance of seriousness, and Konchalovsky refused. Essentially, Konchalovsky argued that they were simply trying to make two different movies, and when Peters realized his inability to bend Konchalovsky to his will, he fired him. According to supporting actor Brion James in a 1999 interview with Louis Paul, the film was in disarray from the very beginning. By the halfway point of the shoot, when the film was several months behind schedule, Peters and Konchalovsky were no longer speaking to each other. James agreed the official reason Konchalovsky was fired was because of the budget. But he also said that going over budget was not Konchalovsky's fault, and that Konchalovsky did not deserve to be fired. Konchalovsky, however, had nothing but praise for Sylvester Stallone, and both he and James said that despite Stallone's ego and decision to fire both original cinematographers and the fact that he had a hand in Konchalovsky's firing, Stallone was the one person who held the project together, and he was a constant voice of reason on an increasingly chaotic set. According to Konchalovsky, by the end of principal photography, Stallone was unofficially working as producer, director, and writer, as well as star. And Konchalovsky believes that had it not been for Stallone, Peters would have fired him much sooner than he did. Production sources said that Konchalovsky had been given impossible scheduling demands and was then made the scapegoat when he fell behind. The director was replaced with Albert Magnoli, who filmed all the chase and fight scenes in the ending. Reportedly, executive producer Peter McDonald, who was also one of the film's second unit directors, took over directing the movie before Magnoli was brought in. A year earlier, McDonald had to step in as director on Stallone's previous movie, Rambo 3, after original director Russell McCaughey was fired by Stallone. There was also a legal battle between producers Peter Gruber and John Peters and Warner Brothers. Gruber and Peters complained in Los Angeles Superior Court that Warner had replaced them on the project, and over Peters' objections advanced the release date of the film by many months. The film went into production on June 12, 1989, and it was scheduled to wrap by August 25th, 1989. Filming concluded, however, on October 20th, 1989. In late August, the directors were switched, and after principal photography was finished in September, replacement director Magnoli called everyone back to the set for 2 more weeks of additional reshoots, which included filming a completely new opening sequence. Filming was finished on October 20th, 1989, 8 weeks before its original scheduled theatrical opening in 1,600 theaters across the United States. The movie was racing to make its December 15th release, but due to Warner Brothers studio complaints on every different cut that was edited before they approved the financial theatrical version, it barely made the deadline, and it ended up shipped to theaters in wet prints, an industry term meaning that it was just barely completed before its release date. Because Warner Brothers wanted no risk of the same problems with the MPAA as it had with Cobra, which almost got rated X, its previous Stallone movie, it ordered the editors to cut some death scenes in the last part of the movie while it was being re-edited, which explained the usage of jump cuts every time someone is shot in the movie. The movie ultimately got the R rating that the studio and the producers wanted. Lamestream! One of the writers who worked on the constantly changing script for the film was Geoffrey Boehm, who also worked on the scripts for the Lethal Weapon films. He had to rewrite the script, which he described as being long, incredible, and awful, that didn't change anything conceptually. Even though he completed many rewrites, he hated both the script and the film, and he did not want to be credited for his work. So we're talking about Geoffrey Boehm. Okay. Behind the scenes problems, including filming, script changes, and later constant cuts and re-editing of the movie, were so big and so bad that one of the more experienced crew members said in an interview This was the worst organized, most poorly prepared film I've ever seen in my life. From the first day we started, no one knew what the hell anyone was doing. The same crew member also mentioned some reasons why director Konchalovsky was fired. He found himself in over his head. There were scenes scheduled for 3 days that were so complicated they should have scheduled for 6 or 7 days. They were trying to do a 22-week movie in 11 weeks. The film ultimately missed its budget by over $20 million, and it had to be completely re-edited by editor Stuart Baird prior to its theatrical release. Tango and Cash was one of the many films to be turned over to Baird, who came onto projects as an editing doctor when studios such as Warner Brothers were displeased with the first cut, in this case, second, third, turned in by filmmakers. Baird was also called in by Warner Brothers to re-edit another Stallone action movie, Demolition Man, 1993, for the same reasons. Demolition Man was not as good as this one. So this is one of the cases where the producer sticking their nose in the business of directing and script writing, it actually came out better, sort of like Caligula, I guess. After Baird was brought in by Warner Brothers to save the movie in the editing room, it was he who hired Hubert de la Bollerie to edit the film, and Harold Faltermeyer and Gary Chang to compose the music. Chang provided additional music near the end of the movie because Faltermeyer could not return to rescore the final reel of the film, as it was constantly being edited because of constant complaints from Warner Brothers. Because of the massive re-editing, some plot points and even some action scenes were deleted. I don't know. I don't know if the original cut would have been a better movie because Warner Brothers kind of snuffed it out. I seriously doubt if there's a director's cut version of this. The theatrical trailer was made using the footage from one of the earlier cuts of the movie. That is why it shows some deleted and alternate scenes, which were changed or cut for the movie during re-editing, which include an alternate cut of a scene where Tango and Cash first meet in the warehouse, an alternate cut of the shower scene between Tango and Cash. It's some joke about dropping soap in the shower. A deleted or alternate fight scene between Cash and a Chinese assassin, during which Cash says, "I hate you karate guys." That would have been an interesting scene. And a deleted scene in which Tango is reading the newspaper and then he pulls out a shotgun and shoots at a car. The trailer also shows extra shots from other scenes. In a 1999 interview with Louis Paul at Chiller Theater Convention, actor Brion James elaborated on his experience working on Tango and Cash and the film's production problems. BJ says, Tango and Cash, I had two scenes when I started the film. Konchalovsky wanted to work with me for years. He worked for Canon. They couldn't pay me, so I couldn't work for them. He wanted to work with him. He wanted me to work with him on Runaway Train. Finally, I get to work with him, and he calls me in, and I meet Stallone and Russell, and they say, yeah, he's great. I just had two scenes with these guys. They chase me around, and I get beat up, and that's it. So I get there, and I'm acting with Stallone, and I made my character have a Cockney accent just to add something. Man, that fake accent is pretty bad. So I created the Cockney. I'm not just another hitman from Cleveland. They loved it. They played off it. They got into it. So Stallone started rewriting the script. The script wasn't really ready, but they were there to go. So when you got to go, you go. The script was ready, and when it was not, he would fix it. The film was $20 million over budget, and I wound up being on the film for 14 weeks. My part went from a few days to much bigger. So I became the main bad guy and not Jack Palance. LP. Konchalovsky lost that picture, didn't he? BJ, he did a great job, but Sly got him fired. Sly is very protective about his films. He got his own DP in, and the film went $20 million over budget. So the studio had to justify it, and they fired him, saying it was the director's fault. It wasn't his fault. They didn't have a script. I was rewriting at the end of the day over and over. They only had 3 weeks left, and they brought in Albert Magnoli. He did rock videos in a Prince movie, Purple Rain. They gave this guy $750,000 to do 3 weeks. By the time he got there, I was like, don't talk to me, stay back. I knew this character for weeks. I know what I'm doing. It wound up being a great film that eventually made a lot of money. It's one of those biggest pirated videos in the history of Russia. There were 80,000 pirated copies. Warner Brothers was crazy not to market it properly, but that film was huge. I went to Ukraine when I was shooting another film, and I was mobbed. I was in the Black Sea, and I had no idea that people even knew who I was. So it sounded like the producers were really bad on this movie. They really mistreated the director, the original director. Stallone said, I had a lot of great times on that film. Kurt nailed some of those scenes like the pro he is. Speaking on both Konchalovsky and Magnoli, Stallone also said, Andre was a real gentleman, and I thought his take on Tango and Cash was very good and would have been infinitely more realistic had he been allowed to continue. His replacement was more attuned to comic pop culture. Oh, brother. So the film had a dramatic shift into a more lighthearted direction. Just think if they had allowed the original director, this could have been an even better movie, potentially. A soundtrack was never released, as the songs were already released on the artist albums. The film score, which was comprised by Harold Faltermeyer, was released for the first time on January 30th, 2007 by La La Land Records, LLCD 1052, in 3,000 limited sets. And we've got Alice Cooper, Poison, as one of the songs in the movie. So we'll put Alice Cooper's name under music by. Karate Man, the first thing you mentioned was the actors. I think I got all of them in the description, but maybe I missed one. I don't know. He's good about pointing out when I missed one, but he did list all the actors in the chat. Sidebar, even though I had already listed them in the description, I think that's the first thing you notice when you watch this. You go, "Oh yeah, that's Robert Zedar." All right, so we got Alice Cooper. Wait, Alice Cooper was busy around this time. Did WrestleMania and did that song Poison for this movie. The film opened on December 22nd, 1989, and during its opening weekend, the movie grossed $6.6 million from 1,409 theaters, averaging $4,704 per theater, and ranking number 2 at the box office. The film saw its $54 million production budget return box office receipts of $120.4 million. The film also sold well on VHS. So there wasn't much marketing cost to this. You think it was a blockbuster kind of movie. On the website The Dissolve, the film was reviewed by Nathan Rabin for his Forgot Busters column, which consists of Rabin analyzing how films that were among the top 25 grossing titles of a given year have not had lasting cultural influence. Rabin said there was more affection and attention to Tango and Cash than he had expected, based on feedback from people who had seen the film since 1990. So this was one of those rare exceptions where it did have a lasting cultural influence, which is why Karate Man recommends it 2 years ago. The film had a score of 31% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 48 reviews and an average rating of 4.4 out of 10. The critical consensus states, brutally violent and punishingly dull, this cookie-cutter buddy cop thriller isn't even fun enough to reach so bad that it's good status. I disagree with that. I thought there was a lot of unintentional humor in this. Like when Robert Z'Dar gets electrocuted on Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 41 out of 100, based on 15 critics indicating mixed or average reviews. The New York Times criticized the plot, the screenplay, and the acting. Michael Wilmington of the Los Angeles Times called it a waste of talent and energy on all levels, criticizing the film as both illogical and predictable. Dave Kerr of the Chicago Tribune wrote that one interpretation of the film is a crazy foreigner's silly, sly parody of the current state of U.S. culture. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B+ on an A+ to F scale. Tango and Cash was nominated for 3 Golden Raspberry Awards: for Worst Actor, Sylvester Stallone; Worst Supporting Actress, Kurt Russell in Drag; and Worst Screenplay. In 2012, the Flophouse podcast dedicated their 100th episode to Tango and Cash. They praised it as an enjoyably bad movie and the last film before irony was created. Slate later listed the episode as one of the 25 best podcast episodes ever. In September 2019, Stallone revealed that he had a story prepared for a potential sequel, and he was trying to convince Kurt Russell to sign on to the project. However, while Stallone was excited to film a sequel, Russell was unsure if he wanted to, saying that by then they were in their unprime. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Stallone started going into his unprime in the early 90s, I think. As of 2023, no further news had materialized on the sequel. Police Story, 1985, inspired the scene where Tango stops a speeding truck, causing the driver and passenger to crash through the windshield. We already discussed that. And then Super Cop, 1992, in turn inspired by the scene in which Tango and Cash escape prison by using a makeshift zip lines. So not only was Tango and Cash influenced by Police Story, but the makeshift zipline scene was also uh, influenced Super Cop 3 years later. And then we've got the IMDb page. Let me pull this up. Um, Escape from New York, my all-time favorite Kurt Russell movies. You might remember I used to have the Snake Plissken account logo years ago on YouTube. Yeah, I do remember that. The late great Geoffrey Lewis has been in a ton of action movies. Yeah, his daughter is yummy. I like his daughter. He thinks he's his Rambo. Rambo is a pussy. Great line. Yes, I loved you in Conan the Barbarian. He's talking to Robert Zedar. What the heck? There was another great line which Kurt Russell says, but is only in the trailer, although not the movie. I hate you, karate guys. Those are the cutscenes that. It's weird because they fired the director, but then they inserted the cutscenes in the trailer. These people are ridiculous. I don't know what Warner Brothers was doing. I don't know what the producers were doing. I don't think they knew either. All right. So this is super lame stream here. We're talking Tango and Cash, 1989, 1 hour, 44 minutes. I paid $3.79 to watch this on YouTube, unfortunately. All the lame stream movies that Karate Man recommended 2 years ago, a lot of them, with the exception of maybe one, or they cost money. They're not free on YouTube. They're not free with ads. I'd rather watch free with ads and save a little bit of money, but it's impossible with these lame stream films. They just want to charge. All right. So this one gets a pretty decent 6.4 out of 10. It's not a great rating, but it's above average, I guess. 116,000 ratings. And the popularity is 3,518, up 585. Framed by the ruthless arch nemesis, a pair of mismatched LAPD officers must put their differences aside to get even with the brutal crime baron who sent them to rot. You're under arrest, and thanks for framing me. All right, more like this. Cobra, Assassins, The Specialist, and Demolition Man. I didn't like Cobra or Demolition Man that much. Not as much as this one. But I'm sure Karate Man put Assassins and The Specialist on my list already. Because it's part of the mainstream, the lamestream stuff. All right. Intense professional rivalry prolongs the instinctive antipathy between the impeccably dressed BHPD Lieutenant Ray Tango and his impulsive polar opposite, LAPD Lieutenant Gabe Cash, as they get in each other's way. Yves Perret, a ruthless international drug lord, plans his next move, but instead of bringing down their arch nemesis, falsified evidence condemns the crime fighters to rot in a maximum security prison, as their former enemies, hardened criminals incarcerated by them, ache to get their sweet revenge on their captors, Tango and Cash must put their differences aside to survive imprisonment and clear their names. But good plans are hard to come by. Can the mismatched partners learn how to work together and get even with the brutal crime baron? There's a storyline. When Brion James was originally hired to play Requin, it was a very small role with only two lines. In an effort to give the character something that would make him stand out, James decided to speak in a horrible Cockney accent. Sylvester Stallone loved it, and he rewrote the script to give Requin a much bigger role. The same thing happened with Face, played by Robert Z. Dar, who was originally not meant to appear after the opening scene, but Sylvester Stallone and Andrei Konchalovsky took a liking to Zidar and thought his appearance was so striking he deserved a larger role in the film. At the beginning of the movie, when the truck is bearing down on Tango and he fires at the truck, the windshield spider webs, as it should, since it would be safety glass. However, when the two men fly through the windshield after the truck is stopped, there are no bullet holes in it and is clearly a plate glass windshield due to how it shatters. Ray Tango says Rambo is a pussy. The film's distributor actually self-censored the British theatrical version before submitting it to the BBFC. In addition to the footage the BBFC demanded cut, the UK theatrical release also tones down the electrocution of a villain. Edited footage of visible bloodletting during the finale omits some footage of Lopez being riddled with bullets, another headbutt, a throat chop, a villain pushing his fingers into Cash's blood wound, and Cash putting a grenade down a villain's trouser. All footage was reinstated for video. This was featured in Siskel and Ebert, Always Music Box, Born on the 4th of July, Tango and Cash, and Camille Claudel from 1989. The soundtrack is Best of What I Got, performed by Bad English, courtesy of CBS Records Music Licensing Department, produced by Richie Zito, written by John Waite, Jonathan Kane, and Neil Sean. All right, here's the featured review on IMDb. It's a little less rating than what I rated 10 out of 10. This person is rating it a 7 out of 10. Angel Honesty wrote a recent review dated January 27th, 2020. Angel Honesty title on IMDb of their review is a fun flick. The only reason this film is worth watching is named Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. The movie is average, cop fighting bad guy film, nothing special, but the chemistry and humor between Sylvester and Kurt was extremely entertaining to see. They work great together, adding so much humor and fun to the show as they flex their beautiful muscles and fight off the bad guys. So I'm guessing Angel Honesty is either gay or female. So many deleted scenes in the trailer. I wish Warner Brothers would just show these deleted scenes. Yes, I agree. Ridiculous, 1,000%. Why don't they just release a director's cut? I mean, come on. What is wrong with these Warner Brothers people? Sorry. Anyways, another great line, good cop, worse cop. There was even a scene in the trailer, which was cut out of the movie, where Stallone shoots a shotgun at somebody's car. I think I mentioned that already. Karate Man's Not adding anything new except for, well, I can't even remember. Oh, he's out of the chat room now, but he likes my video. Okay. So, movies list. We've got number 1, Grizzly, 1976. Number 2, Black Sheep, 2006. And number 3, Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, 1992. Black Sheep is 2006. And Grizzly, the first one, is 1976. Black Sheep is the second one on my list. So I hope you enjoyed my video. Karate Man has exited the chat room. And I'm ready to munch on a burrito and watch some Grizzly. Laters.